Okay, well, today, folks, thank you for joining us on our podcast. And today we're really honored to have a very crucial group of people on campus, namely our faculty equity advisors and some other important people. And they'll introduce themselves very quickly before we start our discussion. So, Brittany, how about you?
Hi, I'm Brittany Ransom. I'm the Associate Director for the School of Art and Associate Professor in Sculpture, and I represent CODA in this group.
Wonderful. And Brittany is the Faculty Equity Advisor for COTA, as she says, in addition to all her other duties. Sergio.
Hello, my name is Sergio Mendez. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Chemical Engineering, and I'm the Faculty Equity Advocate in the College of Engineering.
Wonderful. Hi, Sergio. Welcome. And Pei Fang.
Hi, everyone. I'm from the Department of Speech Language Pathology. I am the Faculty Equity Advocate in CHHS, College of Health and Human Services.
Wonderful. Welcome. And going to chemistry, Margie Merrifield.
Hi, I'm Margie Merrifield. I'm a professor of chemistry and biochemistry and representing the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics as Equity Advisor.
Wonderful, thanks. And also a distinguished role at the Chancellor's office before this. So we're lucky to have you here. John.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Hamilton. I'm the Associate Vice President for University Access and Retention, and I also co-chair the President's Equity and Change Commission.
Wonderful. Thanks, John. Welcome, and thanks for being with us. Kirsty.
Hi, I'm Kirsty Fleming. I'm the Associate Vice President for Faculty Affairs, and I have the pleasure of working with this group of faculty equity advocates on an ongoing basis.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for your role in instigating them and supporting them. And a very busy man at this point, Rigo Rodriguez.
Hello, everyone. Rigo Rodriguez. I am in the Department of Chicano, Latino Studies, and along with Sabrina Ali Mohammed, I am one of the faculty equity advocates for the College of Liberal Arts.
Fantastic. Well, welcome and thanks for being with us, Rigo. Kenji, relatively new. Hi, Kenji.
Hi, so I'm Kenji Klein, and I am in the Department of Management and Human Resources Management, and I am the Faculty Equity Advocate for the College of Business.
Wonderful. Thanks for being with us. And Alex.
I'm Alex Washington. I'm a professor in the School of Social Work and the co-director for the Center for Health Equity Research Institute. And I am an FEA representing the College of Health and Human Services.
Wonderful. And we've got almost a full house here. The one person who couldn't make it because of a competing commitment, a search committee, is Anna Ortiz, also in the College of Education, and the other co-chair of the President's Equity and Change Commission, who wishes she could be with us, but can't because of a competing commitment. So those are the stellar group of faculty equity advocates, and as you can see, our other supporters. So let me start off by asking you, what actually is a faculty equity advocate? What's your role in the college? Anyone who wants to start is welcome to sort of give us some advice.
I can start.
Great.
I think, together we make up a core group of faculty, obviously with at least one representative, in some cases two, from across the campus. And we're working together with leadership in our colleges towards recognizing and fostering ways to make more inclusive environments for our faculty to succeed both in the classroom and in their own research. Since I started being a member of this particular group, I've been working with my college, CODA, to review our college level RTP policies for biases, as well as our CODA Constitution, which we're working together with our other faculty on revising. And also one of the really big key elements that we've been working on in CODA is kind of wider encouragement of diversity and inclusion training, as well as anti-bias training in our hiring committees, and taking a closer examination and care put into our recruitment materials for faculty searches so that we're making those as inclusive as possible to recruit, amazing faculty, especially faculty from underrepresented groups that reflect who our students are. So that's what we've been up to in CODA with me as a member of this particular group.
Great. Sounds incredibly difficult and challenging, but exciting work. Alex, you wanted to say something too.
We have great diversity among our students, and who fills the seats in the classroom should be reflected as well with who stands in front of the classroom. I think it is vitally important for students to see how people from all cultures navigate space, express themselves through lectures, have some shared experiences, and understand and model different paths to success. The faculty equity advocates help bring those things to life by working with the different colleges to attract, recruit, and retain a diverse cadre of faculty.
Well, that is an absolutely perfect capsule definition. And so I think everyone who's listening is now pretty much aware of the faculty equity advocates. And just to kind of say to people who may not know, where did this group suddenly come from? Was it just an idea that sprung out of people's minds? No, it was a direct result of the retreat we had at Lake Arrowhead, where the faculty in large groups, the chairs and many others sat down and said, what can we do to change the situation, which is currently not okay? And one of the things we decided was faculty equity advocates, as like the ones you see before you today, would be perfect in one part of the process. So that's terrific. So, So what's changed? I mean, it's been a relatively short time. You've all got very ambitious portfolios. You're dealing with RTP, you're dealing with hiring, you're dealing with support, you're dealing with cultural change. What have you done so far? Sort of, this is the time, folks, to boast about your achievements, because I am so proud of what you have all collectively accomplished. And I think everyone needs to know about them.
I'm not sure if I'm good at boasting, but I think Sabrina and I see our role as a resource to the College of Liberal Arts and the university more broadly to make sure that we co-create an equity-driven culture and system that will increase diversity and inclusion for faculty of color, and not just hiring and recruiting, but retention. And so we see ourselves as a resource for that intention. And it begins with making sure that we have a clear set of processes that are built on equity. And equity, to me, is a principle of fairness that acknowledges that folks are already facing different kinds of disadvantages. And so we want to make sure that every process is very intentional about how to make sure we remove barriers, and that also we provide supports where needed, so that the end of the process is not, it's inclusive, the whole process. And I think one of the things that we've been doing is making sure that we acknowledge what we have already been doing in the College of Liberal Arts. So really starting from a strength-based approach, tracking what has been working and replicating what's been working. And then we've been also working on the other end, which is the first year faculty who got hired from the last round, making sure that they're connected and on the right path for retention. All of this we want to put together into modules so that as new search committees get formed and as new faculty come into the College of Liberal Arts, there is again, an equity-driven culture, equity-driven system in place, so that we're not just dealing with individual cases, but we're restructuring, transforming a system. It's early, it's in its early stages, but it's very hopeful. So I'll share that.
Great. Well, that's very, very, again, it's wonderfully ambitious. And I think, you know, the key points you make, that this is a whole lifelong commitment, really, in a way. Hiring, recruiting, hiring, supporting, promoting, advancing. You know, we're talking about 30-year sweeps of academic careers. And so that's exciting. Pei Fang, you looked as if you were wanting to add to that, or please.
Thank you. I just wanted to piggybacking what Rigo mentioned. In College of Health and Human Services, myself and Alex, we've been actively promote the equity and inclusiveness in our faculty recruitment and also retention process. What we were doing very similar to what Rigo mentioned earlier. We wanted to know more about the current process. So before making any changes, it is important to know what has been doing, so what is currently in practice. So we spend a little time to get to know the current practice and getting to have some evaluation or investigation on the current problems or areas for improvement. So another thing we are working on is awareness. So we wanted to have people to think and reflect on their current practice and to acknowledge what can be improved and how we can do better. So we can go over common overlooked biases during the hiring process, for example, and also promoting equitable evaluation. That is including in the recruitment, the hiring process, and also the RTP practice as well. So people need to know we should not rely only on one tool or one element for the whole process. We also have to acknowledge the influences of unconscious biases when we're making decisions. So also we have to know the importance of faculty's ability to work with students from a diverse background. Just piggyback what Alice mentioned, we have a diverse group of students. We also need diverse group of faculty that could definitely improve our students' success and also improve the relationship between the faculty and the students, for sure. So that is something I would like to share. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks, Pei Fang. It's what always impresses me about our faculty in general is your passion and your awareness of issues and your power to make changes. And that is so illustrated by this group. So it kind of warms my heart. I kind of want to ask a question about, you know, there's there's conscious bias and unconscious bias surrounding us in our society. You know, to be brutally honest, the United States is a fairly racist society. And so we're making change. We're maybe one of the, you know, points of light, or trying to be a point of light. Let's imagine in 2030 or whenever, that we've continued to make great progress in this particular area. What will Cal State Long Beach faculty look like? What will Cal State Long Beach look like as a community? Margie, Sergio, Kenji, any thoughts on that? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I'll go ahead and take the spotlight. That's a very challenging question. A former colleague of mine used to describe creating change in an institution in a university was like turning a super tanker, in that the actions you take a long time to have an impact. I frankly think if we are able to hire at a reasonable rate, we can in fact create significant change in the faculty. But this is not a new priority. I think it's taken added urgency of late, but it's very difficult to have a meaningful impact when all you are doing is replacing a few people, or maybe not even replacing people on an annual basis. Nonetheless, I think one of the things, I come from the science and math college, where historically underrepresentation of certain groups, it's a problem that's been there forever. The federal agencies have poured a lot of money into expanding the population of individuals with PhDs. And it's very easy to make excuses. It's very easy to say, oh, well, yeah, you know, those minority candidates are just not out there. I have heard that so many times. Or we can't afford them, and that's all mythology. So one of the things that's been heartening to me, I started doing this last year, is seeing when semifinalist pools are more broadly diverse than the starting pools, and then finalist pools are really quite strong, both in all aspects, and also bring much needed diversity. So I think we can have a faculty that looks more like the students we serve, but it will be, I think, a matter of continuing effort on everyone's part, and will take a lot of education.
Great. And just as a response, I totally agree. There's a lot of mythology out there. Sergio?
Yes. I would say in, 10 years from now, one thing that could happen is that the faculty members can reflect the racial distribution of the students. So I know each year at convocation, our dean shows us these like pie charts of different racial groups, etc. I would say right now, the faculty makeup does not reflect the student makeup. So I would say in 10 years, that could happen. Another thing the dean sometimes shows are these charts where they show success of different racial groups. There's, for example, white, Asian, and underrepresented minorities. And usually the underrepresented minorities are well below the other racial groups. So I would say in 10 years, they could all be the same.
Right. And it's, you know, to your point, that being a student-ready university, I think, flips the responsibility for that to us, the administration and the faculty, as opposed to saying, you know, there's a deficit somehow in students coming to us. And talking of students, I mean, John, of course, is a senior leader in the Division of Student Affairs. I mean, tell us why this matters so much for our students, John.
Well, I think Dr. Washington mentioned it earlier about the reflection of what when you see lecturers or faculty that look like you in the classroom, that the performance of the students and their engagement and their interest in being on the campus is increased as well, or enhanced, right? But with that, I know when you started off a few minutes ago and saying that the United States is a very racist country, and it made me think about 2040 and how we will look, even with our student population and faculty population. I'm assuming we probably look the same. That's just me. And I don't know if I'm playing devil's advocate. And the reason I say that is that although we have good intentions of hiring faculty of color, and we have good intentions of opening the pipeline for more students of color, especially Black African-American students, systemically, we still have problems that will not allow faculty of color and students of color to thrive on campus. And so I think it's important that we look at some of those policies, procedures. We talked about our RTP process. We need to talk about admissions process, not only from Long Beach State, but it's a system process for students across the system. And then I think those are one of the things that in USC, some of their equity instructors talk about racial detours, right? And so we have checked the box in saying that, oh, we're going to hire more faculty of color. We have checked the box in saying that, oh, we're going to look at the data to get more students of color, Black students into Long Beach State. But we haven't looked at some of the systemic things that do not allow us to make that happen, right? And so I think we should also look at is the faculty equity advocates, are they a racial detour, or are they really looking at some of the systemic problems within their college and within the system to really advocate for faculty of color? And so when I'm talking about faculty of color, I'm talking about, we get them in, but how do you retain them? What kind of mentorship is for the faculty on our campus, right? And what kind of long-term commitment to mentoring to get them to the associate professor or full professors, and what also that commitment to students to get them to graduate and post-bac or career.
So you're giving a somewhat more, what's the word? Maybe realistic view than our hopes. You know, I, from my point of view, I hear your caution, I hear your anxiety, and I also know that this is both a long-term and a short-term and a medium-term set of actions that we're committed to. And, you know, whether we use the supertanker metaphor or whatever, you know, whatever difficult things have to happen, even though it takes a long time to turn a supertanker, that doesn't mean you don't steer. Mm-hmm. And so we're steering, and we're trying to steer as hard as we can. Now, I take your point. We need to do more. And in fact, that's one of the reasons that I want the faculty equity advocates to be powerful and to speak up. So what's wrong? What's missing? What do we need to do? Is it something that you can do collectively? Is it something that I can do? Is it something the president must do? We need to know. So don't adopt that check the box mentality. Okay, we've done this, let's move on to our next problem. It's, okay, this sounded like a good idea, maybe it isn't a good idea. We're going to try many things, and many things will fail, but we have to keep trying. So, you know, otherwise we won't change. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I know that it's a lot of work. So
I'll say that, you know, I appreciate that, Dr. Hamilton, your point about detours, equity and racial detours, and institutions, and all institutions in our society from a systemic racism perspective have discovered ways to deflect, and because if they had, we wouldn't be here, right? If these institutions. And so I really appreciate that point. I also took on this role knowing that one strategy does not lead to transformation in institutions. And so I am also involved in other aspects of this work. So through my role as a chair of an ethnic studies department, we're also implementing the ethnic studies requirement on campus. And we also, you know, the dean also added additional, Provost Jersky, along with our dean, added faculty lines to recruit. And then there's the equity commission that you're leading, Dr. Hamilton. And so the question that I'm asking is whether we can get to, you know, ensuring that our work as faculty equity advocates is connected to the other work across the campus. And even stuff that I'm not even aware of that is happening around racial justice. And so I think that a next stage of our work in the short term would be to make sure that what we're doing is linked to, for example, what the Academic Senate is doing in revising RTP policies, what the Equity Commission that you're a part of is doing, and that we build a critical mass across the university that is moving towards racial justice, so that our work doesn't happen in isolation, which is one of the traps, I think, of detours. They kind of take us into these rabbit holes and then we stay there. And so I think if we can, as this work matures, because we really are at the staging phase right now, as this work matures, making sure that you know, what you're doing in social work or what you're doing in CODA, Britt, et cetera, is linked to what we're doing in terms of building a critical mass of folks that are connected to each other, building a community that really is committed to racial justice. And so as to avoid and address what we know happens with this kind of work, I just don't see any other option. You know, we've all been at this for most of our lives, and I think trying to figure out how this new stage of work, especially the social unrest and how this has really caused a shift. When I look at the president's equity and action report, and I look at the section related to faculty, and there's a lot of things that I support and that I think we can all work on, but I think we have to connect the dots moving forward.
And I agree. I didn't want to make it doom and gloom, but I just wanted to make sure that we have a larger perspective and not so narrow.
And it didn't come across that way. I think your points offered us the ability to expand this conversation so that we can, we're really doing our work.
And that's what I meant by realistic. You know, so I also don't interpret your comments as doom and gloom, John, but I think it's realistic in the sense that we're setting out a life's work, and that takes seriousness and it's challenging. Kenji, I know that you're relatively new. Kenji sort of replaced the former College of Business faculty equity advocate. How has it been for you personally, sort of joining this group and sort of coming up to speed?
So it's been quite interesting. I mean, issues of racial justice have been things that I've thought about for a long time, but I was not involved in the process of the group organizing. But when I started in September, I sort of threw myself into learning as much as I could, reading through a lot of the stuff that my colleague had prepared when she was here, and then just learning a lot from listening to the discussions in the meeting. The current advocates, you guys bring just a wealth of knowledge, to this. And so for me to participate in the meetings and hear from you has been just really helpful for me to sort of put it all in context, and also to see the way things look at the different colleges, and to recognize that all of the colleges have a sort of different set of problems and issues that they face, and to sort of get that perspective has been really helpful. And so that's been good. And then, I've been really trying to understand what the specific challenges are at our college in the different departments. So I had a sense for what it was like in my department, but spending the time to talk with other departments at the College of Business has also been really useful. And to try to help people understand the need for this. And I do feel fairly optimistic about it, that faculty members that I talk to at our college, they get this idea that, we have a unique student body, and we need to have more faculty who reflect that, so that they can help not just the students, right, to make the students feel, to see themselves in the faculty and to recognize that they belong in this environment, but also just having them around to help our faculty understand our students' needs. Because I think this is something that comes up when we talk about, overall progress. It's not just that our faculty should be a more diverse pool, but we really, our primary purpose is to ensure that our student body can thrive. And I think, our students, particularly students from underrepresented minorities, face some very unique challenges that are very different from the experiences that our faculty members have had. And so to have faculty members who are from those groups, who can speak to those experiences, is really helpful for our faculty members who are not from these groups to recognize, oh, when I have students that are going through this kind of experience, this is probably what it's like for them, because I've had a colleague who can explain that to me and talk about that. And I think that that will also be really helpful. So I'm sort of, in between the visions that Sergio and John kind of laid out in terms of like 10, 20 years. I don't think that the faculty will broadly represent the same proportions, of different groups that we have as students, but I think we'll be farther down that path than we are now. And that also will have a better understanding, regardless of what the ratios are in terms of faculty, we'll have a better understanding of how to help our students thrive and be successful and move into better positions in society. And so overall, generally improving, the state of our society by having people who understand these things and by having successful people from these underrepresented minority groups.
Great. Wow. Well, there's a wonderful example, perhaps, of the golden mean. But I think, one of the things that you said struck me intensely, which is that so much of this is educationally focused, which is our mission. And it's the professional development of our community, students, faculty, administrators, chancellors, all those people and our communities that we serve, which Kirsty has done an amazing job at since she arrived at, transforming the kind of education process that faculty take on. And sometimes, how can one help but be despondent when you read things like the recent Wall Street Journal diatribe against, EDDs and women in education. But on the other hand, it just confirms that, what we're doing is needed more and more. Kirsty, sorry to give you such an introduction, but I mean, focus on the positive and forget about the Wall Street Journal. But Dr. Fleming.
So, it's been really interesting listening to the group talk to you, right? And just to sort of think about some of the things that people have said. I think about we're not all the way there, but in some ways, the Faculty Equity Advocate Program, which, as Brian said, came out of the retreat in Lake Arrowhead a couple of years ago. It is by design something that is really a component of creating systemic change, right? So often these programs there would be some faculty members who would be equity advisors, and they would go and meet with each search committee once at the beginning of the year, and then they would move along, right? Whereas this group, I think one of the huge values, a huge value is the individuals and how committed they are, but it's designed as a community itself, right? We meet regularly so that we're learning together and learning from each other. And I'm being informed about the kinds of changes that need to be made at the institutional level, not just within colleges, right? So the design of the group is intentionally to help move towards more systemic change, right? I think the other thing that sometimes people don't think about is the reason it makes sense to me for this group to be working with the ABP for Faculty Affairs is that some of those other connections that people mentioned are very natural, even though maybe it's not historically true that the ABP for Faculty Affairs would do it. But many of us in these roles oversee faculty development, and what Kenji said, it's about education. Right, so infusing these ideas of anti-racism throughout the kind of professional development that we offer is within the purview of my office. Looking at RTP at the institutional level is something I can do and that can be informed by the information that groups like you give me, right? So So I think those connections, some of those dots are being connected, but I also agree we need to connect more of those dots, right? So we're building this picture, I think, that ultimately will benefit our students and our faculty in terms of, you know, their sense of belonging and their success on our campus. And then the group itself, we have some connections, although I'm not going to say it was 100% intentional, but we have Sabrina, who works closely with the CFA, right? And the CFA plays a major role in this work, or can play a major role. We have Rigo and the connection to ethnic studies, right? We have Pei Fang and the connection to the Senate. We have Anna on the Equity and Change Commission, right? There are multiple examples. Everybody in this group is doing other work towards the goal of creating, you know, towards the anti-racism goal. So I do see this group as part of a bigger picture and connected to other things, but I also see, I think what John is saying is that we need to A, be persistent, and B, you know, make more of those connections as well. But I'm optimistic. I think we can make progress.
And you reminded me of my grave oversight in not also mentioning that, of course, Sabrina Ali Mohammed is a crucial part of this group. And so my apologies, Sabrina, and to all of you for forgetting. I'm not the very best interviewer, as you can tell, but I do my best. You know what this is reminding me of is sort of revolutionary change, and how, and I mean, I hate to bring this up in this sort of way, but you know, one needs seed groups scattered through a society, and those links between those groups are so important in suddenly fertilizing the change that happens. And you know, I have an interesting story to tell in this regard, based on my home country, which is South Africa, as many of you know, also quite well known for perhaps the most cruel, racially discriminatory system ever invented. But since 1994, South Africa has been free in some senses. And the university that I did my undergraduate degree at, Wits, which was actually also where Nelson Mandela went before me. And Winnie Mandela was also a student there. And in fact, interestingly enough, we were students together, Winnie and I. And my claim to fame, such as it is that I got tear gassed in 1986 with Winnie Mandela. But I was speaking to the Vice Chancellor of Wits the other day. And so 1994, it's now 2020. And we were discussing this very issue, social justice, change, how does a racist society become an anti-racist society? And South Africa is in some ways in advance of America, in some ways not. But Wits is now, it used to be a majority white student university, it's now a majority black student university, as it should be. And I asked the Vice Chancellor was very proud of that. And so I said to him, what about the faculty at Wits? And he laughed and he said, do you know that last year, 2019, was the first year that black faculty were a majority at Wits. And so even in South Africa, and even with a government committed to social change, it took that long to change the university in ways that we hope to see. So we talked about change here, and I said, I wonder if it will take that long here in the United States, here at Cal State Long Beach. And that's what I meant about there's a long-term goal. We've got to keep working and we've got to keep making those connections. I'm very optimistic, and I think, you know, Cal State Long Beach is one of the agents of change for our whole country, as universities tend to be. And the fact that we're working in this environment of ferment and change, even in the face of opposition and sometimes disappointments, makes it very exciting for me. So I think we have about 5 minutes, and I want to give you the last words. So I don't know if you want to give us words of encouragement, words of wisdom. John, any last thoughts?
I think I just piggyback on Dr. Rodriguez is that I think as we move forward and we talk about equity and change, and that we have to work more together and closing communication loops, knowing what everyone's doing across the campus from the colleges, DSA, whatever it may be, so we all can work together towards a common goal.
Okay, I'm taking notes. Alex?
I think that bringing on board more faculty, getting more faculty that we have already here on board with what we're trying to do. And I think that one of the ways to really attract a diverse cadre of faculty is by the treatment of those that are already here, because those individuals can be the ambassadors and how they're treated, and they tell other faculty and other PhD students or people that they know and their families, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and people around the world that CSULB is a place that not only talks about wanting diversity, but creating a space where diversity can flourish, and understanding that success can be sought through various pathways and not just one, and not just using the old model that is beneficial for middle class or upper middle class white males in a patriarchal society, but thinking differently about even just the questions we ask in interviews, the tools that we use, and removing that bias about how a person looks, dressed, fits in a traditional setting. If you want a variety of people from various cultures and experiences, the questions you ask and how you screen people need to be conducive to selecting difference or different than the status quo.
Great, I agree. It's interesting how markers of even sartorial differences are important. Britt?
I think one kind of closing thought I've been thinking about while we've been having this conversation, and in terms of posing that question of the future in 2030 or 2040, that I think about is, while we may not be able to kind of increase metrics as quickly as we would like to, and increase those pools in ways that we would like to, I do think one really positive aspect of this group and all of the other kind of multi-prong approach that CSULB is taking towards having these types of conversations is exactly that we are now, I hope in the future, kind of going to be engaging in this type of conversation on a more broad basis, that as we've talked about, that connecting that kind of web in a larger sense to create a net for our whole campus is going to be really critical. And I think that in 2030 or 2040 or in the future, that having these conversations and having more faculty informed and participating is a really important aspect of this. I think even the step of Faculty Senate having open meetings for us to discuss these issues in relation to RTP and retention has been a really positive step. And so I see that as a major kind of way of moving forward. And I hope to see that kind of continue in the future as well.
Great, thank you. Sarah, to you?
I would say, yeah, I agree that at your level, you want to have institutional changes and policies and all that. Another thing, as a faculty equity advocate, our role should be to highlight unintended biases amongst our faculty peers. So that's kind of our role.
Okay, and it's a challenging one because nobody thinks that they're biased, but of course we all are. I am. Margie?
Well, if you're looking for causes for optimism, I would point to the faculty that we have just hired. In my college, we had a small but mighty cohort who started this year, and as college gets ready to, there's a group of us who are working on programming toward, toward discussions around anti-racism, around racial justice. Several of the individuals who are really deeply engaged at this point are brand new faculty who see this as compelling and important. We have brand new faculty who are really taking a critical eye toward the experience of students and the factors that may be barriers to their success. So I completely agree with everyone who has talked about the vital importance of retaining this talent that we worked so hard to bring.
Right, retaining and promoting and advancing. Yeah, absolutely. It's, I think one of the things that is so important for me in this conversation is, even though we're talking about faculty, we have a key representative from the Division of Student Affairs. And ideally, what I would like to see down the road is an equally key representative from the Division of Administration and Finance, from the Division of Athletics, from the URD, because this is a community-based effort, and we all need to be communicating. Rigo, I think of your job coming up of introducing ethnic studies curriculum to students, and I'm also imagining that we have a job in introducing ethnic studies to the faculty. Do you want to comment on that? Do you see much hope of that kind of education?
Thank you for mentioning that, and just want to note that this work is happening alongside the Africana Studies, Asian American Studies, and American Indian Studies programs, and so we really are building something together to ensure that not only students have a foundational understanding of race, racism, anti-Black racism, and ways in which racism and racialization impact for specific groups, but also helping them understand how to move forward. How do we do things? How do we change things? So because our communities and our histories also reveal that we haven't been static in the face of racism. We've always been undermining it, figuring out what to do, even if it just means in our everyday life. I think the social unrest that on the heels of the gruesome murder of George Floyd and others has really shifted the paradigm, not only of this, but at least discursively. I mean, when you see the President's Equity Action Report, that's also happening in other institutions that I'm working with, such as, for example, the Department of Mental Health in LA County. The Board of Supervisors for LA County passed a motion on advancing diversity and racial equity that's requiring all departments to put together a racial equity plan. So this is happening not just in a university, but across the board in major institutions, certainly locally. So I think we're preparing our students towards understanding racial justice, racial equity, and how to do that. And I see our role here as faculty equity advocates as part of a larger effort to build a campus-wide community of people who, A, are deeply committed to diversity and inclusion, and then B, will be able to use equity-based strategies for racial justice. I think if if the work that we're doing here gets connected to what's happening with ethnic studies, gets connected to the work that I know you all are doing on equity, I think we have we can rise to this historic occasion while at the same time being sober about all the detours that institutions take. And so I'm glad that this university is taking a stance, and I think I see us being in solidarity and really strong partners. And I'm looking forward also, Provost Jersky, to the role that leadership will continue to take from the academic side and the administrative side, because I think the role of leadership is so crucial. And so I hope that at least our advice and our work will contribute to giving the directions to you all as we move forward.
Well, I can only speak for myself, but I commit to that, and I am sure I speak for others actually too. We could go on and on and on, as you can see, and this is maybe the topic of this century for the United States, but our time is actually up. And I just wanted to, again, thank you all. I leave our podcast both sobered and inspired. So thank you for both of those things. So thank you very much, and go Beach.